Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, we can see that.
Is it? Okay, wonderful. Okay, thanks, Phil, and everyone. And this is Sam Lau coming from Hong Kong Baptist University. And thanks, Phil, and the team for organizing this. And today, let me share with you some of my experience in engaging quiet student in Hong Kong. Okay, is it working? Let's see. Yeah, it's working. Okay, quiet student, who are they? Okay, let me start by inviting you to share with us your thoughts on quiet student. Okay, please scan the QR code or use the slido.com and type 974845. Let me hear from you what you think quiet student are. Okay, coming. Shy, not confident, and introvert, not participating, and attentive. Oh yeah, wonderful. Not engaged, passive, and worried. Me. Wonderful. Thank you so much for your sharing. So indeed, we do have a group of very engaging colleagues. Thoughtful. Yeah, seems like shy, passive, introvert, not confident are some of the thinking from all of you. So very nice. We got over 80 response. Yeah, coming up. So perhaps we wait for 10 more seconds. Silenced questions. Yeah, this is sometimes quite frustrating as a teacher when we have no response from a student doing online teaching. Serving Facebook, I see. Okay, thank you so much for your sharing. So it's good to know, it's good for us to know what we've been thinking about quiet student. Oh, let's see. Okay, silence. Is silence good or bad in online learning? It depends. Silence is only a problem if we see it as such. In the virtual learning environment, quite often, the professor would say, hello, can anyone hear me? Is it working? Indeed, because of the pandemic, our classroom moved from in-person to online, which brought every single of us, teacher and student, a whole new environment. However, in a virtual classroom, student camera off, the mic unmute, we're unable to see student, and students are unable to see one another. So in a typical virtual classroom, we keep talking to a blank screen. So can you see those who stare at you with that blank, confused look? It's no way for us to receive any emotion or feedback from a student if that cam off and mic mute. No facial expression, no body languages. Students holding their tongues, no clues on their present, on their engagement and their learning. So I'm interested in learning how best to help and teach a quiet student. So let me share with you the observation from a pilot survey that I conducted with my 130 students in the spring semester, with over half respond. So first, so why do they keep their cam off? So some shy learners feel embarrassed and stressed. They just not comfortable with open participation. So others have good reasons, like my family is around, as I'm sure you know, in Hong Kong, many of us are living in a rather small apartment. So some say a bad air still in bed. And despite the very high good internet connection, but still some students say that they have a poor internet connection at home because they are not prepared for the online learning. So we're missing the organic conversation, real time, and in a physical classroom. So we all love getting student feedback, facial or not, a head nod or agreement, but it may be a different story for virtual preschool classroom. My student in early childhood education shared with me, all preschooler kids, they are so excited to voice their views at the same time in their online learning. So when students won't stop talking, the teacher have to turn off their camera. So what a dilemma. We definitely want a balance, not too quiet, not too noisy, or simply under control. So the students are quiet. So why are students quiet? And so I mentioned early on, they're shy, and sometimes it's quite embarrassing. They avoid being judged, and they say they would prefer avoiding a negative impression on other students. Some are very considerate, saying they simply turn off their mic, because they don't want to disturb others, teacher and classmate, and because if they turn on their mic too often, they find it is quite too noisy to affect their learning. And some students, they are quiet, simply they do not know the answer. And some say they are lacking confidence. Interestingly, in the Hong Kong culture, some students say they respect the teacher because they only answer questions only when asked or invited. So that's interesting. And so I also asked my student how often in a 3 hours lecture they would speed up. So you will see about half they would not, and 1 to 2 times about 42%, and 12% say 3 or more in a 3 hour lecture. And many of us may think silence negatively. Students are quiet at times for some good and reasonable reason, say it's related to their personalities, learned behaviors, or situational factors. But regardless, often silence is considered as a problem in online classroom learning. The silence may be misinterpreted as a lack of participation and engagement. So however, silence alone. All right, okay, so time is running quick. So a quiet student means a low or no participation? Oh, not quite. In my class, I asked my students, so would they have low motivation or participation for, they simply say no. For quiet student, they could still have high motivation and participation. So next, some may be quiet verbally, but when students are asked to choose between talk or pose, 94% of my students prefer posing to talking because they find typing is convenient and they can send me private messages, and they can learn ideas from other classmates, and they can think twice before sharing the answer. And so you will see most of the students, they prefer posing 1 to 2 times, half of them, and the other half 3 more times. So how to keep quiet students engaged in online learning? In a physical classroom, students we may find it challenging to keep quiet students engaged, not to mention the online learning. So to start with, I think an interesting picture could help. So for my every 3-hour lecture, I kickstart my lecture with a picture of famous painting. So this is one example that I use in my nature and human connection lecture on environmental psychology. So basically is Riverside Park that borrowed the masterpiece from George Seurat. So a student, as I learned from a student, they find it very interesting to start with a masterpiece. Seems culture and art are not relevant to environmental psychology, but in fact they are. And also e-learning tools. Most of my students say e-learning tool helps. So I will use a Slido, for example, for interaction, one say for 20, 30 minutes. So every now and then, a simple question could help. Okay, just simply ask them to choose 1, 2, 3 choices, or answer something related to daily life, and or simply call student to expand on the response in the chat box. So, and then we can turn response to questions. So when a student has spoken, we could try to turn a student opinion into questions. So leaving other students to think and work. So when students go quiet, it doesn't mean that they are not thinking. So it's good to provide them with something to think.
Sam, we're going to have to stop in a minute.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Phil. So tell a personal story could help. And current issues, I think, is pretty much like being the host of a radio program. And some dead air time is fine. So when we face the screen, it can often feel like time goes by faster than we face a large crowd of students in a physical classroom. And to get to know where the students feel engaged, so it's good to ask. So for every single lecture, I use the Google form at the end of the lecture for 1 to 2 minutes to get student feedback. And also for the next lesson at the beginning, I will show all the feedback to the student. So be open and I respond. So students feel that, oh, their views are being listened. And
Sam,
at the end,
I'm so sorry, but I'm going to have to stop you. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. That's sure.
In the interest of just keeping to time, I hate doing that. I really do apologise. We do have some questions as well. And I'll just see how we're doing for time. We've got a couple of minutes. Nick Black has written in the comments, he's so interested in your work and he has said, is it possible to get access to your data? It'd be really helpful in backing up research on driving student engagement with online forums, etc., for a blended flipped classroom model.
Yes, thanks for the question. In fact, this is a pilot studies. I'm going to move on to do a real one. So coming up, I would conduct the survey with my student coming up. So if anyone interested, please contact me. I can share with you some of the prelim data.
Fantastic, thank you. We do have about a minute and a half, and we did have some comments in the chat. We could just find one. We've got some apologies there, some applause there. Yeah, there's so many. Sam, would you be able to jump into the chat just to have a quick look at those? Because I think we're approaching the time to jump into the next one now.
Sure.
But yeah, thank you so much, Sam. That was really interesting. Yeah, thank you so much.